Hi guys, it's Teresa, welcome back to my channel. Today I kind of just want to do a discussion slash survey type of video where I just kind of want to talk about something that I've been thinking about for a long time and that I always find really interesting to just figure out in other people, I don't know. And that is, how do you choose which book to read next? I know a lot of people have set TBRs for each month, but if you don't follow them or you don't have that strict of a rule with them, how do you pick your next book? And in this video I just want to kind of go through a few options or ways in which I pick my next book, and it's not really a rule or anything, it's just sort of a pattern that I've noticed, and I want to talk about it, so let's get started. So the first, I think, is obligation. So this is usually if you have something to read for school or for university, or someone has lent it to you and you need to return it on time, or a library due date is coming, so things like that, you just pick a book because you have to read it. This often results in not really feeling like reading it. At least that's the case for me. I don't like feeling pressured into reading something. In that case, I often put it off. I don't use the time I do have to read. I decide usually to do something else with my time, like watch TV or I mean, not that that's not a worthwhile, use of your time sometimes. But I just mean I'm not doggedly pursuing the book, and I'm not trying to find the next opening where I can continue reading. The next is one that has recently been happening more, and that because somehow it took me a long time, I don't know why, to realize that learning and reading don't have to be at opposite ends, and it doesn't always have to be a book that teaches you something is boring. I don't know why, but it honestly took me too long a time to realize that those two things can often be connected. And so the method of picking the next book could be the interest in a certain subject matter. That has been happening more, as I said, last year. In particular, I got into China as a country, as a culture, and its history. I read a lot of Chinese historical fiction, and the same kind of happens with Japan, even though I know more about Japan now, so I don't necessarily feel like it teaches me too much. But yeah, I found that I really love reading historical fictions, or even fiction just in general, set in different cultures. And I love the experience of learning about something completely new. So if I'm interested in a certain culture, I actively seek out a book that's set there, set in that country or whatever, or that even remotely relates to it. Sometimes it will turn out to be a non-fiction, but not necessarily, because I think you can also learn a lot from reading fiction set in a certain setting. Next is the highly anticipated new release. This is something that doesn't happen too much with me, especially because I'm usually hyped for a book either when I read the first book in a series or something, or I hear about the first time, oh my god, it sounds so cool. At that moment, the hype is real for the sequel or for the book when it comes out. But then at the time that it does come out, usually I'm in the midst of reading something else, or hyping myself up for something else, so I'm not dying to read the new release or sequel or whatever. For this year though, I've set myself to goal to try and read all my 2018 releases pretty close to the release date so that I can film individual reviews. I've done two so far in this year, which I'm really glad that I'm sort of sticking with that. There's definitely some hype there, but it's never as strong as it might be with other people. The next method or whatever is usually the one that happens the most, and it's the domino effect of reading one book that sparks your interest in the genre or the type of story or even the author, and then you go from there and just binge read a bunch of similar books or books set in that genre or by that author or whatever. This really does happen a lot for me, and it kind of ties into the next and last point, which I have, lyrically titled the Dynastic Cycle, which is actually a term in Chinese history. But in Chinese culture, it means a new dynasty starts, and at the beginning everything flourishes and the country is doing really, really well. And then at some point it reaches the top, and from there the dynasty starts getting corrupted and bad things happen to the country, and they always kind of consider the end of a dynasty, like after a certain disaster occurs, and then like that dynasty is over, and a new dynasty starts, and like it rises up again. So that's kind of the dynastic cycle, and I'm I'm just borrowing this model to describe what happens in my reading taste, because I do have this domino effect of wanting to read like one specific genre exclusively for like a month or so, and then I start like absolutely hyped for it and loving it, and every book I pick up has like this bonus of being in that genre because I'm just so into it and I love everything I'm reading, and then at some point I just oversaturate on that genre. And then, for example, this happened just in January with fantasies. I read like 4 or 5 fantasy books, and like 2 of them were like pretty big, and the beginning I was like, oh my god, more fantasy, more fantasy, and then eventually I just got bored and I was like, actually I don't want to read fantasy anymore, I don't want to read, and then I stopped, and now I'm into something else. So it's like this thing. I don't know. I think this is quite common for most people, but I don't know. Definitely let me know though, because that's kind of the point of this video. Also, usually the sort of transition from one dynasty, from one genre into the next is often when a book is sort of cross-genre, or it only has mild elements of another genre that attract me so heavily that like from there I go crazy. I'm fully into that genre again. So I don't know, I think it's really interesting how this can happen, because there's a lot of genres I love reading, like thrillers and fantasies and sci-fi and literary fiction and contemporary, sometimes fun, like lovey-dovey, even though that's like the smallest amount, like the smallest category. The one I read the least often. But I think it's so interesting like how you can love all genres, but a lot of the times I'm just like so into one particular one that I kind of eclipse all others, and I only care about that one for a while, and then it changes again. I do definitely also have phases where I read like one book from one genre and then one from another, one from a completely different one again, so it's not set in stone. It's just like, again, there's no rules. This is also why I don't like making TBR videos or like setting TBRs, strict TBRs for myself, because I honestly don't know how long a dynastic cycle or like a dynasty genre, whatever, is gonna last, and if I even want to just stick with one genre that month or not. Like, I like some freedom. I have a lot of books to read, and I'm gonna read them eventually. At least I'd tell myself that. I don't really feel like forcing myself into a certain direction every month, but that's just me. Thank you for watching this kind of random video. Let me know in the comments down below what kind of reader you are, or if you have a completely different like system or method or whatever of determining what you're gonna read next, or if you also just let yourself kind of like in the moment pick a book, blindly pick a book, or just something you gravitate towards and that's just what you read next. Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you're new here. I upload videos every Tuesday and Friday, so don't forget to come back for that, and I will see you soon. Have a lovely week. Bye!